समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
One reason I so love my job as a journalist is that I also love to tell stories, and I get to tell stories. It's a regret, therefore, that I do not have many stories for this episode of First Person Second Draft on Indira Gandhi's birth anniversary. I was 27 when she died. Yet, given how limited VVIP security used to be those days, I found myself close to her on 2 occasions. She was out of power in the summer of 1979 and going to Srinagar on what used to be the only flight to the city to Srinagar, and Indian Airlines HS748 Avro, the flight used to be IC421, that did the Delhi, Chandigarh, Jammu, Srinagar ferry hop. It was for a few minutes during her Chandigarh stopover that I found the opportunity to get close to her for at least 3 or 4 or 5 maybe minutes of conversation. It was a bit of a crush. Chandigarh, the civilian side, then had a very tiny terminal, but I was able to push and shove my way and get close enough to ask her a few questions. More lasting than the story was the memory it left behind. A black and white picture of the little chat with Gyani Zail Singh and V.N. Tiwari, former Congress minister and MP now, Manish Tiwari's father, listening with great attention. That chat with Mrs. Gandhi, and you can see that picture, V.N. Tiwari and Gyani Zail Singh listening with rapt attention. My second and last opportunity was more insightful. It had to wait 4 years, and this was a very unfortunate event. This was in February 1983. On 18 February, the great massacre of Nellie took place 120 kilometers east of Guwahati during Assam's widely unpopular election, 1983. More than 3,000 Muslims had been slaughtered that morning in a few hours. Next day she came to visit the spot. She stormed out of the helicopter as soon as the rotors stopped. But the dry sand that they had churned up from the post-winter floodplain swirled in the air. Mrs. Gandhi covered her nose with her pallu, but it didn't hide her anger. 3,000 मुसलमान मर गए, इसका कौन जवाब देगा? आप? 3,000 Muslims were killed. Who will be held accountable? She scolded R.V. Subramanian, then Chief Administrator of the state, as Chief Advisor to the Governor because the state was under President's rule. Then she found IGP Law and Order, then KPS Gill. The same KPS Gill who we know more about from his time in Punjab, he was from Assam cadre. आप सब सो रहे थे क्या? Were you all asleep? She was furious. Both listened in silence. Subramanian and KPS Gill listened in silence like contrite schoolboys. Then she wiped her face with the pallu and said, "Uff, kitna dhula padta hai. God, what god-awful dust." This always makes me think about a Satyajit Ray interview where he talked about a day in the life kind of documentary he was making on Indira Gandhi, a day in the life of Indira Gandhi. As she went through or pretended to go through her daily chores, adjusting the odd chair in the living room or shifting a picture, she picked up a dust-coated framed portrait of her father and seemed to be looking for a map. That is, a portrait of Nehru, and she was looking for a map. It was a dust-coated framed portrait. Why don't you dust it with your sari pallu? It'll be a great shot, suggested Ray. Mrs. Gandhi said no. Why not, Mrs. Gandhi? Don't you have sentiments for your father? Ray apparently asked. I do, said Mrs. Gandhi, but I don't have sentiments for dust. That fraught and short morning in the dusty Brahmaputra Valley did not mark one of Mrs. Gandhi's finest moments, but the decision that led to it counts among her toughest. A popular and mostly peaceful mass movement peaceful until then. Peaceful mass movement against foreign nationals had raged in Assam for 4 years. Such was its sway that even the supply of crude oil from its oil fields had been blocked to the rest of the country. The state had no control. The government had no control. This forced election, despite popular boycott, was the Indira way to restore state's authority, government's authority. It cost, in my estimate, 7,000 lives in just over a fortnight. In my book, Assam a Valley Divided, it's a chapter titled A Fortnight in February. That's the reason. A majority of those killed were Muslims. How would history assess her for this? This exercise of state power was brutal, cynical and violent on part of her government. After all, the state was also under central rule. She installed an elected government, even if polling was lower in many constituencies, way lower than Kashmir Valley at the worst of times. A minister got 100% of the votes cast. 100% of the vote cast, which is all 266 votes cast. His opponent could not even cast his own vote because of protests. She, Mrs. Gandhi, wasn't one to bother. The ruthless side had become evident even during her bumbling early phase of being Gungi Gudiya, dumb doll, as Ram Manohar Lohia, the great socialist, had infamously described her in parliament. And I'm sure Lohia did not live for very long after that, but his followers, the Lohiites, I'm sure must have regretted it through their lives. Much like her son later, that is Rajiv Gandhi, much like him, she had been catapulted to prime ministership by a sudden death, that of Lal Bahadur Shastri. India was recovering from a string of withering wars, 1962, 1965, combined with food shortages. 1965, by the way, India had negative economic growth of 2.6% or thereabouts, if not more. She was weeks into her new jobs when Mizo rebels took over Aizawl, were about to overrun the treasury and the Assam Rifles garrison and the deputy commissioner's home. She did something nobody has done before or since then. Used the Indian Air Force to bomb and strafe, rocket and strafe Aizawl. It is criticized now, but it saved the day then. From strafing Aizawl to the decisive war in Bangladesh, to the Assam elections of 1983, to the forced Assam elections of 1983 and Operation Blue Star a year later, the same unforgiving exercise of power, a belief in the supremacy of the state defined her style. Each of these actions left its scars, but the larger threat to India was permanently removed. Pakistan will never be a two-front threat because she broke it up. Pakistan will never be a two-front threat. Bangladesh could be a reliable ally, sometimes troublesome, sometimes reliable, but mostly much less of a challenge than East Pakistan used to be. Its social indicators, Bangladesh's social indicators now are way better than Pakistan's, way better than Pakistan. It's doing better in sports. Even the Dhaka Stock Exchange beats Karachi's market cap. Mizoram is now the most peaceful tribal state in the northeast. In Assam, the mass leaders who blocked oil supplies at the elections of 1983 signed an accord with her son, contested, won power twice, lost it. Today, their rump is a marginal coalition partner sometimes with the BJP, but they really don't matter. That is the Assam Gara Parishad. Similarly, while she was assassinated for Operation Blue Star, Punjab has had normal politics now for almost 35 years. It had trouble till 93, but since then it's been quite normal. Hers, Mrs. Gandhi's, were not like the gentle, skilled cuts of a surgeon's scalpel, but more like a woodcutter's scythe. These left scars. These also created her new opposition, much of it out of her own party, from the Congress party, and today's non-Congress opposition too. In fact, if you see non-Congress opposition everywhere, either it came out of her party or these were people she put in jail, especially those of the BJP and RSS. In a national interest on the 40th anniversary of the emergency in 2015, I had noted that almost everybody who's anybody in today's establishment was jailed as a young leader by her during the emergency. She did brilliantly on national security through the most challenging years, but there are two big failures. One, her record at maintaining communal peace was embarrassing for someone who not only claimed to be secular but was also genuinely so, yet she failed to maintain communal peace. Some of the worst communal riots took place under her watch. The second and the greatest failure was the damage she did to our political economy. Nehru's socialism was gentler. His left impulse, that is Nehru's left impulse, reflected the idealism of his times. Indira Gandhi's was cynical. She was no liberal romantic but a cold warrior. In fact, I would put special emphasis on the word cold. She used socialism to split the party, that is the Congress party, her own party, nationalized one industry after another, banks, coal, petroleum, insurance, nothing was spared. She even blundered into nationalizing grain trade, Pakka communist style in 1973, but panicked under farm distress, the only time that she lost nerve in her lurch to the left and withdrew that policy. Some of the damage she did to our constitution is permanent. She added the word socialist and secular in the preamble through an entirely illegitimate and unconstitutional parliament in the 6th year. Why do we say illegitimate and constitutional? It was in its 6th year extended term during the emergency. From 1991 onwards, India has been moving away to a market economy, yet we can't see any leader with the courage to decontaminate our constitution of that illegitimate insertion. Even if BJP RSS win a very large majority going ahead, maybe 2/3 someday on their own, and amend the preamble, secularism might go, socialism will definitely stay. The evidence keeps coming. Often enough, the Narendra Modi government, instead of reversing her worst economic decisions, bank nationalization, threw several trillion rupees to revive them. Modi's political economy is more inspired by Indira in many ways than Vajpayee's. And politics? The method Indira perfected was total politics. The entire nation had to be conquered by her party, opposition destroyed. Through populism, alliances, smash and grab, hook or crook, and Article 356. She had as much time for the opposition as for dust. Remember that story I told you about Satyajit Ray and that dusty framed portrait of her fathers? That's what I mean when I say she had as much time for the opposition as for dust. She so wanted an opposition Mukt Bharat. Sounds familiar?